gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the Town Board of Mooresville Board of Commissioners, September 8th, 2020 board meeting. At our first meeting of each month, we set aside some time to allow public comment for our citizens or anyone wanting to address the board. Each speaker is given 3 minutes in which to comment. Speakers are expected to be civil and respectful to the board in their language and presentation. It is the board's practice not to respond or engage in conversations with anyone who speaks in order to give the speaker the full amount of time to voice their concerns. If you raise a matter you would like to address either by the board or by the town staff, please leave your name and contact information with the town clerk and someone will contact you. Please understand that the state law prohibits us from discussing employee personnel matters with you. Thank you. And at this time, I have 2 people that have signed up for public comment. The first person is Dora Lipper. And Ms. Lipper, if you could come forward to the podium. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Dora Lipper and I've lived in Mooresville for 14 months. I moved here from the Seattle, Washington area for my husband's work. Though his office is in Davidson, we chose to live in Mooresville. I want to be proud of the town in which I live, and to be honest, I'm struggling with that right now. I brought a Black Lives Matter project request in support of our Black citizens to the town leadership, and though I was told by many that it would never happen in Mooresville, I kept my rose-colored glasses on and kept believing. Well, I should have listened to the naysayers, not in Mooresville, they were right. That disappointment in how the town lacks in equality for minority populations was my first exposure, but not my last or my worst. Since beginning my deep dive into racial inequity in Mooresville, I've been repeatedly disappointed by what I've learned. Areas where our Black citizens have told me that they experienced the less than treatment from the town of Mooresville include the delivery of public services, job opportunities with the town, sidewalks, transportation for children to Selma Burke, equity in parks, and recognition of the historic contributions Black citizens made to the town of Mooresville. And I'm sure the list goes on. I came across the town of Mooresville Diversity, Inclusion, Belonging, and Equity Strategic Plan, which states, our town's vision to be a safe and vibrant community that is inclusive to all can only be fully realized if public services are provided by a diverse and inclusive organization, an organization in which all members feel a sense of belonging. The town's diversity statement reads, diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity are integral to the vision, mission, and values of the town of Mooresville. We are responsible public servants who are accountable to our citizens and each other. We are a dedicated team serving with pride, integrity, and commitment. In pursuit of our mission to enhance the quality of life for all citizens by providing high-quality municipal services and directing well-planned growth and development, the town actively seeks to attract and retain staff from diverse backgrounds and life experiences. We believe that diversity among our staff strengthens us, stimulates creativity, promotes the exchange of ideas, and enriches our organization. I'm not sure how the Board of Commissioners feels the town is doing on meeting the ideas outlined in the diversity statement, but I do know how members of the Black community with whom I've met feel the town is doing. I want to leave you with an epic quote by Stanley Crider of Delaware, which I found, which tells you why I'm here. I say Black Lives Matter because all didn't cover Black when they said all men are created equal. I say Black Lives Matter because all didn't cover Black when they said with liberty and justice for all. I say Black Lives Matter because they're still struggling with the definition of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lovey Turner.
Town Board of Mooresville. I'm here to relay my concerns about issues that are present in my community. While I have been here on previous nights to present awards, tonight I'm here as a concerned citizen and a taxpayer. There are several issues that I would like addressed by the board at a later time, I know. First, I'm asking that our community, which includes Bell, Patterson, Biltmore, and Lee Streets, receive the same services as other parts of Mooresville. I have had to call countless times to have trash picked up, streets swept, or gutters cleaned. I understand that we fall behind schedule, but that doesn't mean to skip my street. Secondly, the Lee Street Park is a town-supported park, but it seems to lack the care that other parks of the town receive. I am simply asking that Lee Street Park be given a bathroom facility the same as your other parks. There's a porta potty located at the skate park up near the police department. They don't even have to walk that far for a bathroom. There are other parks in the town, Edgemore, Liberty, Willowbell, those are nice parks. I would not mind going to them. My hope is that Lee Street Park receives the same attention and care. Thirdly, Green Acre Cemetery is owned by the town, I was informed. Yet when it's time for it to be cleaned, I received a call to ask community members to come out and clean up the cemetery. I do not go to that church and I do not use that area. I never received a call to ask about cleaning Willow Valley or any other memorial garden in Mooresville, so why Green Acres? We have to learn to watch our speech. Be mindful of what you say and how it is received. I have been told many times that Mooresville wants to be a seamless community, but how can that be when we are miles apart in our understanding of each other and our needs? For example, the town decided to pay Visions Inc. $80,000 a year for 4 years to figure out that we have diversity issues. I could have saved you $79,999 and told you yes, we do. I haven't heard or seen any sign or change that has been implemented since you formed your diversity committee. The town employs approximately 522 or so. These may be older numbers. 83% are of European descent. Visions reportedly interviewed 127 employees, and most said that the town seems to be making efforts in the area of diversity, but promotions and job openings are not publicized as they should be. They still have to say that we have a long way to go, and I agree. We need to move beyond the thinking that everybody here is already created equal. We are created equal, but we all don't get the same treatment. So again, I want to recap what I'm asking for. Better services for Lee Street, Bell, Biltmore, and Patterson, bathroom for Lee Street Park, regular cleaning of Green Acre Cemetery without someone calling my house, update information on the findings and progress on diversity and inclusion within the town, and a time limit where you can contact me, which all of you know how to reach me, on when we can expect to see these changes. Also,
Thank you, Ms. Stern.
thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. You can leave the information with the town clerk as well,
Thank
so
you.
we can follow up with you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Mooresville Board of Commissioners September 8th meeting. The Troop 171 of Mooresville, accompanied by Assistant Scoutmasters John Bellamissimo and William Harriman, are here with the Troop 171, and they will come up and lead us in the pledge following the invocation. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please join me in standing for the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for an opportunity to be here and to be about your business tonight. We pray, Lord, for our town and for our country, Lord, for healing, for unity, and Father, for a spirit of service that pleases you. We pray that decisions that are made here today will please you as well, Lord. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Scouts, attention! Present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with with liberty and justice for all. Order, arm. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, gentlemen. Commissioners, we have two proclamations. Both are going to be presented to Sue Mitchell. Ms. Mitchell can come forward, and if I could have Commissioner West and Commissioner Whittington join Ms. Mitchell up front, and Commissioner West will read the proclamation recognizing September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Commissioner Whittington will be reading the proclamation on the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution.
So I'm going to read the first one, which is Proclamation for Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2020. Many of us who have served in the past have taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the draft of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is of the greatest importance that all citizens fully understand the provisions and principles contained in the Constitution in order to effectively support, preserve, and defend it against all enemies. And whereas the 233rd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution provides a historic opportunity for all Americans to reject or to reflect on the rights and privileges of citizens as well as its responsibilities. And whereas a resolution was adopted by the United States Congress and signed into public law 915 on August 2nd, 1956 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower to set aside September 17th through the 23rd annually for the observance of Constitution Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Mooresville do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2020, as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to reflect on the many benefits, privileges, and responsibilities of American citizenship this 8th day of September, 2020. I'm smiling. You can't tell, but I am smiling.
Doing the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Whereas each year a special presidential proclamation is issued on October 26th to celebrate the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, guaranteeing American women the right to vote, and that the year 2020 is the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. Whereas the women of the United States have united to assure that these rights and privileges are available to all citizens equally, and whereas the women of the United States have designated August 26th the anniversary date of the certification of the 19th Amendment, which culminated a 72-year nonviolent campaign to extend the right to vote to women as a symbol of the continued fight for equal rights, and whereas the women of the United States are to be commended and supported in their organizations and activities, and greater participation by women in our government helps us build an American where the dignity of every person is respected and where opportunity is within reach of all its citizens. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Board of Commissioners do hereby commemorate that day in 1920 on which the women of America were first given the right to vote, and honor the contributions and accomplishments of women throughout our history, and pay tribute to all those who helped bring equality to women in America. This is the 8th day of September 2020.
ladies want to say anything? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Well, we just encourage everybody with so much attention on the Constitution this year to learn a little bit about it during the week of September 17th is the day. A lot of you might be homeschooling or have your kids at home right now. There are tons of resources online, and you can learn so much about the Constitution. Spend an hour. They have little games that you can teach even the youngest person about it. And with, of course, the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, it's really important to us in the DAR. So I just encourage you to get out there and learn as much about it as you can. It's an ever and expanding kind of experience. Every year I learn something new that I didn't know before. So thank you. This is Jordan Biffle, and she's our women's committee chair.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to say that although we're here to celebrate 100 years for the 19th Amendment, there was still a large fight for disenfranchisement and accessible voting, and it's still very important to our civil liberties. So I would encourage all of you to vote any way that you can this year and do your duty. So thank you.
thank you, ladies.
Commissioners, next, Commissioner Houston is going to read a resolution confirming and in support of the Mayor's Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion. I'd like to invite all those who have been meeting on this, informally on this task force, if you could join Commissioner Houston.
Well, tonight was, we had a couple speakers tonight, we spoke on this, everything's legal, but town, this resolution tonight to start this week, to be able to get out and get the information to the ones that need to be part of this group. So to make this legal, so this resolution tonight will open up the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. And tonight I will read the resolution endorsing the information of the Mayor's Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion. Whereas the town of Mooresville is in a unique position to work in the community to foster unity, promote awareness, and to create opportunities for dialogue in the area of diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. And whereas the town has a significant public interest in ensuring citizens feel safe, valued, included, and heard. And whereas the town has substantially benefit from bringing together citizens from all diverse backgrounds, regardless of race, equity, age, religion, gender, and economic status. And the purpose of healing, learning, building relationships, and growing together. And whereas the town seeks to foster unity, awareness, and create opportunities for dialogue with all community entities, including business, faith opportunities for dialogue, faith institutes, based organizations, school, nonprofit organizations, and all citizens in our town. And whereas the mayor determined through the office that a mayoral task force of diversity and inclusion be formed to pull together those individuals involved to provide such a voice for the community. And whereas the mayor is now asking that the town board of commissioners embrace and endorse the information of such mayoral task force. And now therefore it be resolved that the town of Mooresville Board of Commissioners does hereby lend its affiliation and endorsement of the information of the Mayor's Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion, and charges the mayor to provide the leadership, direction, and appointment of membership to such task force. This day, adopted 8th day of September 2020. Thank you. And this is the task force that have been unified to move forward with this project. We have Ms. Tanay McLean, the Boulder Greater School System, Tamika Haynes. She's a retired mother right now, staying at home. And the chief, Ron, mayor, our town manager, and Mr. Joaquin Brawley, which is our director of the Samuel Bird Center, and Mr. two members that's not here tonight, Tanae, Radisha, and Antonio. So now we'll move forward with this project, and we'll get more information out for the community, so you can become part of it. I'm here for her opportunity to do a little bit about what we're doing.
Hello, so I am super excited. This team, as you can see, we all come from completely different backgrounds, but we've had some really amazing conversations over the past 3 months. There have been tears shed, there have been laughs, but I'm really excited about where we're headed. Our core values for this team are community, courage, empathy, equality, integrity, and respect. And when we first started, first thing we talked about is we had to establish trust. And, that's the only way we can, move this forward. But this team is extremely committed to making sure that everybody feels included in this community. My motivation and my why is my 2 boys that are 10 and 15. And as I've shared with the team, they've had some pretty rough experiences growing up in Mooresville. But I decided this is our home, so we're going to do all that we can to make sure that regardless of your background, regardless of where you came from, your gender, your age, your faith, your whatever, you're going to feel loved and appreciated and celebrated. So myself, I am holding myself accountable as we all are holding each other accountable to make sure that we just keep it moving forward.
Good evening, Raheem Brawley. Just wanted to touch base, as Tamika said. My number 1 goal is to make sure that we have equality across the town of Mooresville. My why is because being born and raised here in Mooresville, there have been some things that we've seen, some things that we've heard, and some things that's been done that we don't approve of, but at the same time, we can't change the past, we can only move forward in the future. So with this team, we look forward to just building trusted relationship, communicating to the community, and then also making sure that all are valued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for supporting that resolution. It's very much appreciated. We have a lot of work to do, but we have a committee group of individuals who are committed and dedicated to moving Mooresville forward, and something that we can all be very proud of. Commissioners, at this time, I want to, there are no adjustments to the agenda. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and regular agenda as submitted. Mr. Dingler made the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Paul seconded the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, will move on to agenda item 6A. This is a public hearing to consider an economic incentive agreement for Fit USA Inc. Chair will open the public hearing and recognize Karen. I know Jen Bozer is here with Idaho Economic Development. I do want to recognize commissioners. We do have Carrie Austin, our Assistant Town Attorney sitting with us as well. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Chris Younger. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with Iredell County Economic Development. And to my right is Jim Bozer, our President and CEO. And we would like to both thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to present before you a project for economic development incentive. We'd like to thank the Town of Mooresville, Mayor Atkins, and the Town of Mooresville Board for your consideration of this economic development incentive. Iredell County Economic Development, we are pleased to present Fit USA, also known as Project Company, founded in 1969 and headquartered in Sandrigo, Italy. They're an industry leader in the thermoplastic fluid transfer systems. The facility here will be a manufacturer of water hoses for domestic and commercial industrial use. The company currently employs 910 people globally and has 11 logistics and manufacturing facilities worldwide, and consider multiple locations for this new facility before they're choosing Mooresville. The location here in Mooresville would be their first United States-based manufacturing operations. The new facility would be approximately 120,000 square feet in size and located within the Mooresville Business Park East. The company anticipates creating up to 144 new full-time positions and invest up to $25.6 million by December 2024 in capital investment. In accordance with the Town of Mooresville Economic Development Grant Program, we are requesting an incentive be granted for Project Coupling, which is Fit USA, for 5 consecutive years totaling up to $551,000. Iredell County is also considering an incentive grant offer to the company, and that public hearing is scheduled to occur on September 15th. On behalf of Iredell County Economic Development, we'd like to thank the board for your consideration of this grant, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Younger. Any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, at this time, I'm going to invite the public. If there's anyone from the public that would wish to speak to this matter, you're welcome to do so at this time. Anyone from the public? Hearing none, the chair will close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Mr. Houston's made a motion to approve the economic incentive agreement with Fit USA. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Whittington. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, agenda item number 6B. This is a zoning establishment request from the Town of Mooresville. The property is located at 245 Rocky River Road. At this time, the chair will open up the public hearing. Recognize Mr. Wilson.
Good evening. So before you this evening is a zoning establishment request at 245 Rocky River Road. Currently, this property is zoned RA, residential agricultural in the county, and the request for you is to go to R2, residential R2. So the applicant is actually the Town of Mooresville. This property was annexed into the town in June. It was outside of the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction, so it had county zoning at the time, and needs to have town established zoning. As I mentioned, the request this evening is for R2 zoning. The owners have built a single house on the property. It is 3.97 acres. And you can see on the aerial here, it's just east of Shears Road. And you can see around it, there's other single family lots, some vacant land, a little bit of forested area. The future land use designation is neighborhood residential, which you have information in your packets. It does look at interconnected neighborhoods, single family homes, the density between 3 to 6 units an acre. This is the sheet showing neighborhood residential information. So one item of note, the staff did recommend approval to the planning board. If you look at the aerial, you can see the property and the surrounding properties, as I mentioned, 3 to 6 units an acre is technically higher than what R2 allows. R2 only allows 2 units an acre, so technically the rezoning would be just below the threshold that the One Mooresville plan intends for this area. The One Mooresville plan intends it to be a higher density, higher intensity use than the applicant and the property owner was really interested in looking at. So staff did recommend approval, even though the density is lower than the One Mooresville plan. It still fits the rest of the intent of the district, although it's a little bit more rural. During the planning board meeting, we had no citizens speak for or against this petition, and the planning board did recommend unanimous approval of this petition. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions, Commissioner, Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, the chair will open up for public comment. Anyone from the public wish to speak, you're welcome to do so at this time. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, the chair will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. West has made a motion to approve the establishment of zoning from RA to single-family residential R2. Is there a second? Mr. England, in second, discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And Ms. Austin has just clarified that a statement of reasonableness is not necessary for this zoning establishment. So, Commissioners, we'll move on to agenda item 6C. This is a rezoning request from Land South MB Mooresville. It's time to show up at the public hearing. I recognize Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. This rezoning request is for two separate properties, 207 and 215 South Broad, both of which are owned by Land South and MB Mooresville 1 LLC. The request is to go from quarter mixed use to town center. The applicant for 207 is Land South of MB Mooresville 1 LLC, and for 215 is Michael Ogden. As I mentioned, the owner is the Land South of MB Mooresville for both properties. This is a conventional rezoning request to go from CMX to TC. The property is 1.39 acres. You can see here on the aerial outlined is right on Broad Street, just a little bit further south than what we would consider Main Street proper downtown. It is currently vacant. There are two commercial buildings with associated parking lots on both properties. So the properties are developed, although they are currently not in use. You can see on the zoning map, so town center is just to the north. You can see it stops at McClellan. It's pretty much the break of it. And then south of that is CMX. This green is RMX, which is residential mixed use, just to the west a little bit. So some by right uses, and we have two different zoning slides. The quarter mixed use by right uses and the town center by right uses are very similar, as are the land development standards. By right uses and quarter mixed use, duplex, downtown multifamily, medical facility, office, types 1 and 2 retail, brewery, brew pub, restaurant without drive-through, and density is 8 detached units an acre or 12 attached units an acre. The town center designation, which is the request for this property to go to, is by right uses, live, work, dwelling, townhomes, medical facilities again, animal shelter, vet clinic, office, types 1 and 2 retail, bar, brew pub, and restaurants without drive-through. Density is 8 detached and 16 attached units an acre. So again, you can see some pretty close similarities. The future land use designation on the One Mooresville plan has this area downtown center, and that's really looking at the traditional downtown, walkable, buildings closer to the street, sort of uses, looking at commercial, retail, and office as primary uses, density being between 1 and 12 units an acre. That is intended to be secondary to the commercial nature of the property, so units above in mixed-use buildings. Again, the plan sheets from One Mooresville plan are in your packet with some more detail about that. The downtown master plan does have this area. You can see it just here. This is the property. You can see how the buildings are envisioned in the downtown master plan, oriented to the street, not set back with parking in front. So downtown master plan does look at refining Broad Street, making sure Main Street spreads over to Broad Street. Main Street's doing very well from an economic perspective and a retail perspective, looking at making sure that spills over to Broad Street. Making future street level storefronts and sidewalk entrances. Again, it's looking to be walkable, urban. Our most urban area is the town center zoning designation for downtown. So the next steps for this property are a little bit unknown, as it is already developed. It really depends on what the applicant would like to do. This is a conventional rezoning, so we do not have a plan associated with it. So if the applicant chooses to reuse the existing buildings and parking, maybe some nominal approvals as far as land use changes, some some building code improvements, fire improvements, things like that. If they want to demolish everything on site and rebuild, it would then go through the concept plan, the whole TRC process. It really just depends on what the applicant and property owner are looking at doing on the property. It would really depend on what the next steps might be, assuming it was approved this evening. During the planning board meeting, we did have one citizen speak, expressing concern about potential use of the property. They didn't explicitly state they were against the rezoning, but I think it was inferred during planning board that they did not support the rezoning. Staff did recommend approval. Staff feels that it is consistent with the One Mooresville plan as well as the downtown master plan. Planning board did recommend approval to the town board through a unanimous vote. I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Mr. Walls?
So if you could go back to the slide on what the allowable uses are for this, the request. So in summary, just quickly looking, the biggest differences are we could have animal shelter and vet clinic there on the corner, or a bar, maybe a restaurant. So, to do just a straight up rezoning, we're saying if we approved it, that we would be happy with any of those things right there.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So we would be happy, and we expect the neighbors to be happy with an animal shelter. I love animals, I'm with you, but I don't know that in our downtown center, that's the right place for it. So I'm a little challenged with carte blanche use with all of these here, that close to residential. And do we want to allow any of those things on there without a plan? I'm a bit conflicted without a plan what this is going to be. We certainly want to expand our downtown and be open to having successful businesses, but we need to be very selective, I think, and that close in proximity to really our historical district along the Academy Street.
Yes, ma'am, and in addition to the uses, you're correct, they're very similar. Obviously, Porter mixed use has a couple more residential uses that are allowed by right. Town center again is more commercial, but the animal shelter and bar are probably the two biggest additional uses that are allowed by right. In addition, town center allows you to go 4 stores, commercial or Porter mixed use is 3. So there are some residences here in the green, this area down here, in close proximity, and as well. So, yes, ma'am.
Other comments or questions, commissioners? Mr. Williamson?
The part that goes back farther, does that touch a residential, that part, I know it's not, there's nothing there, but is that a house?
Yes, ma'am, there's a house on
It
this property.
concerns me if we have no control over what goes there, if we approve it, that, and I don't know if older people live there or what, but I do know it's the most historical, that and Center Avenue in our town, and I don't want to do anything to discredit that.
Any other comments or questions, commissioners? And just for clarification, Mr. Wilson, if someone wanted to, under the current zoning, it's corridor mixed use, which means bars and brew pubs would not be allowed as a use by right, but is it possible the applicant could come forward and an applicant could come forward with that kind of a zoning, and it would be a conditional use?
So in the quarter mixed use, brew pubs, breweries, restaurants are allowed, and bars are not.
So in order, if the board knew what was going there, and it was a bar that was being requested, it would need to go through conditional use,
Yes,
where the board would have a better understanding what was going in.
yes. The uses we list are permitted by right, so those are staff level approval. There are additional uses that are allowed through conditional zoning, or special or conditional use permit as well.
Any other comments or questions, commissioners, before we invite the applicant? Commissioner Easton? Commissioners, if you could use your mic.
The current use zoning and downtown master plan, everything can be used under the current zone if it's left there at this time, except set for veterinarian. That's the only thing I think is missing off of this list.
Or RS.
So really, only thing that I see that really kind of hit my eye about downtown would be the veterinarian clinic, but seems like everything else is based there. I mean, bar is, I mean, you got the Mexican food place there. I don't know if I haven't been in there in a while. I don't know if they sell alcohol by the drinks or not, but by right, if we leave it, we're not gonna sell plant either. So, the only thing that I don't like about the district town center is the animal shelter and vet clinic on our main thoroughfare. But everything else basically the same except for a bar and the two things. I don't know what we're gonna change really. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, Commissioner Falls?
Can you help us by defining, how do we define a bar versus a restaurant that serves liquor by the drink?
Happy to look that up for you. The applicant is here, I don't know if you would like me to look that up, speak time for time.
Sure, let's go ahead and invite the applicant forward. Would you like to come forward this time?
Good evening. My name is Ben Castorino. I'm a lawyer at the office in Davidson, and I'm here representing the owner of these two properties. Mr. Ogden is a potential tenant for one of the properties. So the application really got started in that vein. And I'm not to reiterate, but I would like to point out that, you know, we did take a look at, and pretty extensive look at the One Mooresville plan and the downtown master plan. And these two properties are pretty well identified in those plans as marked for town center zoning. So in your long-range planning, y'all have adopted, you have expressed the desire to have this type of zoning for these properties. And the idea was to continue the downtown center along Broad Street. The corner was kind of just an arbitrary cutoff point because there was a street there. And I think that with the development that's happened on Broad Street and it's continued to grow and resurge, the idea was for that to continue now. And there's been questions, you know, regarding the uses and the differences in that. My client, really, the main difference for my client was the dimensional standards. It was really the zero lot line setback. My client would like to try to bring that building out to the street, to engage the street, because right now along Broad Street, there's parking in front of the building. It's not really conducive to pedestrian travel. There's vehicular travel right there where there should be the pedestrian entering the shops from the street. So that's really the impetus. We'd also like to open up McClellan to street front shopping, which this district would allow them to do. As far as future, you know, potential future, the dimensional standards as well with respect to the height, the densities, the parking, those things are also, I think, more advantageous that you want to have in this area, but also more advantageous for my client in potential redevelopment of the property. If that comes to fruition, there isn't a plan for that right now. Their thinking was to have the district established or the rights established, and then to be able to commit the resources and the funding to try and explore those redevelopment opportunities, to have live work type of arrangements, potentially with residential above. But really right now the idea was to try and do an addition to the building to bring it out to engage the street, and take advantage of that zero lot line setback, because you have your town center ordinance, but you don't have in your CMX regulations. So that was the idea, and also I believe one of the other reasons was to allow for live music. My understanding in current regulations is that live music would not be allowed in a restaurant, whereas it would be allowed in a quote-unquote bar. I don't really know the technical difference between what you consider a bar and a establishment that serves liquor and food. I think the state has a definition that has 50%, more than 50% of the revenue has to be food sales for it to be considered a bar. Where you come down on a 50-50 ratio, I'm not sure. I know Mr. Ogden's primary motivational force is to have the live music, live entertainment. That's his background, that's what he does, that's his passion, and that's what he would like to bring to this property. Not so much liquor sales, he doesn't really do a lot of food, there will be food, but whether it would amount to 50% of his revenue or not, we don't know. So that was one of the reasons as well, so that he could bring live entertainment with alcohol sales without having to have a heavy restaurant operation. So I think it creates another venue in your town, in your downtown district, for folks to come and to relax, enjoy some live entertainment, to engage the street, to walk from a restaurant or some other place where you've been in town, and to come and to enjoy some live music. So that's really the concept we're trying to draw, trying to paint for this property. And I as well am available for additional questions. And I also want to point out too, that there are some items or uses that are not allowed in the town center that are allowed in the CMX. So with this change, the owner is zoning themselves out of some potential uses, which include an automotive dealer and a self-storage facility. So those are some uses that you may not want to have, that the owner would be giving up the as-right ability to do that they could do now, in consideration for these other uses, which I think are more advantageous and as identified in your planning documents, more desirous for the town. So I appreciate your time and efforts tonight, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, comments or questions? Mr. Falls?
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, truly the ask is that y'all will put a bar there, and then instead of asking for a conditional use permit, you would go in this direction to just allow for some carte blanche zoning. Why did you just not ask for a conditional use permit? I'm a little confused, and maybe I've got the process.
Yeah, maybe I didn't elaborate, because our reasons were multiple. The one is for a bar with live music. The other property is for, the corner property is to have the zero lot line setback, the dimensional standards, the parking and the density standards that come along with the TC district. So those are not really conducive to a conditional zoning. And to do that, you have to have a whole lot of upfront cost, engineering and design to come in with that request, which the owners at this point, since we don't have, a specific user for that, we'd like to go to that, and we'd like to go to that in a step-by-step approach. So this was their desire to come in to request the zoning. So there's multiple uses, there's multiple reasons, one of which happens to be for the live entertainment.
Additional comments or questions, Commissioner Dingman?
What you're proposing, I mean, it draws some interest. The only problem with kind of Commissioner Falls is in the morning when someone asks me what is on there, and tell them, I don't know, it could be one of 7, 8 possible things. My recommendation to you is to go back whatever it may be you're trying to do, bring it back to us and show us. At the end of the day, I mean, Mooresville County, to the folks around there, the residential piece that which Main Street does not have. So my recommendation to you is put it together and bring it to us. I think it's very interesting, but just for me to say, okay, I can't do that, so.
Commissioners, any additional comments or questions for the applicant? So at this time, I'm going to open up for public comment, and then certainly you'll have the opportunity to come back and address the board regarding any public comment if there is any.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to open up for public comment. If there's anyone from the audience that would like to come forward, Ms. Matter, you're welcome to do so. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, there's really no reason to come back up unless commissioners, you have any other comments or questions for the applicant or staff. Mr. Boston?
Okay, were you able to look at that definition?
Yes, ma'am. And I'll start with restaurant. So restaurant is an establishment where meals or prepared food, including beverages and confections, are served to customers for consumption on the premises. Such a facility may include indoor and outdoor seating with no drive-through service. And then for a bar, it's a little bit longer, so please bear with me. It's bar, nightclub, or a similar establishment. An establishment having as its principal or predominant use the serving of alcohol for consumption on the premises, and which sets a minimum age requirement for entrance consistent with state law. The primary source of revenue for such uses is derived from alcohol sales, and the secondary source from serving food. Such uses may also provide for on-site entertainment in the form of live performances, dancing, billiards, or other entertainment activities. It goes on to differentiate that to medical-oriented uses. So one is predominantly alcohol with some live entertainment and activities. The other is food with some alcohol that could also be served, but predominantly food.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Williams?
I would like to know, I mean, the owner purchased this property, surely he knows what, I mean, it's a big piece of property, and I'm sure it was a large amount of money, surely he knows he's gonna do something special with it. Is that, can you tell us what it is?
And I did represent the owner when they purchased this property. And I did purchase it from Mr. Teeter, who's been here for many, many years. He originally did this property back in the sixties. The property was occupied, pretty fully occupied, when my client purchased the property. Since then, some things have changed. The property has, become unoccupied. They haven't listed with a broker. They've had interest. They've had interest from everything from restaurants, and a bar, to daycare center, to other types of uses. But we haven't gotten, enough traction to lease the property. So it's kind of languished. And it's a difficult situation because it's an older property. It needs some work in order to justify that the property was expensive. It's to justify more expense or cost. They would like to be able to bring it up to, quote unquote, modern standard. And that is the town center standard, is what we see happening to where this property should be going as the town continues. So we would like to do that in connection with perhaps getting a new tenant when the occupant for the property. But right now we don't have that. I wish I did. I wish I did have a big tenant that I could bring to you and show you a nice big glossy plan. It would be great. Unfortunately, we have to put this before we can put that. That's just the way this project is dictating that we proceed. So that's, you know, we would have Mr. Hyman as a tenant that would like to be in the town of Mooresville, would like to bring live entertainment. What I would mention is that, you know, your long-range planning, your One Mooresville plan and your long-term master plan both earmark this property for town center, not as a conditional use, but as a zone district. And, you know, kind of what I hear is that you don't want a bar here. You want it zoned town center, but maybe some folks, maybe some folks don't want to have it. That's not real consistent with your zoning. And it really makes it difficult for, you know, someone to plan or someone to try to bring an investment development that wants to do what you have in your long-range planning and to bring that to the town. So we're here with the application that we have. I appreciate your comments, I appreciate your questions. We have a responsible owner. They own other properties in the area. They've always been responsible for what they've done. We have a responsible and experienced tenant that has devoted their life to live music. That would like to bring that type of thing into downtown. And we believe, one, it's not only consistent, but it's what's described in the long-range plan for these properties. And we would just like to bring that to you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, commissioners? I did close the public hearing. I'm going to close the hearing. Commissioners, you can go ahead and move forward with the motion and Carrie, just for clarification that if the board chooses not to move forward and the zoning that's been requested, can the applicant come back specifically for one of those properties for conditional use? If that's what they know what they want to mark, and come back before the board for that specifically?
I'll defer to Danny on this, but I believe that they can put in a separate application for that.
Yes, sir. The time limit is just for a similar rezoning application for the same property, which is 12 months. But I do want to clarify one thing. So the conditional zoning in the quarter mixed use does allow for a bar, but it does have a separation distance from residential. It would exclude this property from being able to obtain a conditional use permit for this property specifically. So it is allowed in the district as a conditional use, but for this particular property, the adjacency to the single family homes would cause an issue.
The chair will entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request, and most specifically on what you just said, David, that if this request came in for conditional use, that it doesn't meet the requirements to have separation between residential and a bar use, for live entertainment, that type of thing. So I guess I'm a little conflicted, and obviously our One Mooresville plan, we found some discrepancies that we want to correct, but why would we allow town center that would allow a bar with live music? And I'm all about a bar with live music, but we have to be mindful of the neighbors behind that. So why would we allow town center there when we have residential right behind it? Then we give it use by right, but yet under CMX with the conditional use, it doesn't meet the guidelines. So we have conflicting policies. Is that a fair statement? Unfortunately, we've sent the wrong signal to the public. And as many people know, we just adopted the One Mooresville plan last year. And again, we're finding a number of items that we need to go back and put a better lens on and not send the wrong signal with this. And I apologize, but this is coming for a straight up rezoning to not know what it's going to be, even though the applicant has described what their intent is with it. I can't get behind that and be able to assure the neighbors behind there that it's going to be a use that is the right use, whether it's a bar or an animal clinic or whatever would be allowed in that town center. So I'd love for it to come back out a little bit better of a plan, but in between that, we really have to do something with our one Mooresville plan. So again, my motion is to deny the request as presented.
Commissioner Qualls has made a motion to deny the rezoning request. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Damon. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion to deny the rezoning request is passed, and we'll need a statement of reasonableness from the board for rejecting the request. Mr. Wilson.
The zoning amendment is rejected because it's inconsistent with the town's one Mooresville comprehensive plan, is not reasonable and in the public interest, because there are residential homes in close proximity, and a conventional rezoning to town center would not be compatible with the existing uses in the area.
Commissioner Qualls has offered up a statement of reasonableness. Is there a second? Mr. Damon has seconded that. Discussion on the statement. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Statement passes. Commissioners will move on to agenda item 6C. I'm sorry, 6D. And this is a text amendment, request from the town council to allow above ground electrified fences. The chair will open the public hearing. Recognize Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. So this is a request, as you may recall, initiated a few months back by a private landowner submitting the request to modify our zoning ordinance. Currently, zoning ordinance does not allow electrified fences outside of agricultural or governmental areas. So this text amendment was to allow electrified fences in commercial areas for security purposes. When it went to the planning board directed its staff to look at the language and work on a different version of a text amendment that would allow electrified fencing for security purposes in non-residential areas. So this petition in text before you is from the town, but really originated from a citizen of the community. The intent is to provide security for businesses while maintaining safety, desired character of the areas. There are 4 sections of the zoning ordinance that needed to change in order to allow electrified fences. You see the sections listed up on your screen. So section 2.3.11.3 just allows it clarifies non-electronic fences do not need zoning permits, but that electrified fences do. Table 5.4.2 just adds electrified fences as an accessory use, accessory use table. Section 9.3.2 is a table just saying, or I should say 9.3.2 is really the meat of the ordinance. It allows electrified fences through a conditional use permit, but it has very specific parameters. A zoning permit must be obtained, a building permit from the county for electrical permit from the county must be obtained. The fire department approval must occur to ensure that the electrified fence can be turned off in an event of emergency. Has other parameters. It requires a perimeter fence be around the electrified fence. So as you see in these images, there's a perimeter fence that's non-electrified. And the electrified fence with these single strands of wire behind it. The electrified fence could be up to 10 feet tall. The outside fence is up to 8 feet tall. The 2 feet is needed for security so people can't climb over the first fence and just jump the second fence. It requires that it's within 150 feet of a residence, a daycare, or a school, that this outside fence be permanently or be screened so that a small child cannot reach their arm through and grab the electrified fence to prevent accidental electrification. And then section 9.3.6.2 allows electrified fences under the standards of 9.3.2. So you'll see a lot of these are just references, but 9.3.2 is really the meat of the ordinance. During planning board meeting, the original applicant felt the standards were a little too stringent. Obtaining a conditional use permit instead of being by right and requiring an electrical permit from the county instead of not requiring an electrical permit, they felt were a little bit too strict. And they prefer to see some of those lessened. Staff did recommend approval to the planning board. We feel this text is enforceable. Does allow businesses a new security option and would limit the location to more appropriate areas that would not have detrimental impact on the character of the community. Planning board did recommend approval to the town board through unanimous 6-0 vote. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Mr. Dingler?
Yes, Mr. Wilson, when you're going, when I go through everything, everything about it, where it starts with A through G, H, G says hours of activation. I know a little bit of history about this, and not where it came from, but, and it was intended for a self-storage facility. When you say the fence must be off there when the public does not have legal access, how does that work for a facility that, I mean, that's the whole reason behind it is our PD can't control these areas all the time. You know, that's when the fence needs to be on. So, is there something missing there or what?
So the public access would be anyone could just walk in. If at night the self-storage facility closes, right, their gates close, the only way you can access the property is with your code that you have as a renting customer, the fence can be on. If I can just walk in off the street, have no relation to the property, not rent space in the property, the fence, and no one is on the property manning the fence, it cannot be activated. So the intent is if someone is on site, the fence can be active. If the facility is locked to the public, and again, the public is not a customer of the facility, but just general public, if the gates are open and anyone can walk on to the property and there's no staff member on the property to monitor the fence and turn the fence off, the fence cannot be on. So at night, the gate would be closed, it would be locked, there would not be staff on site, and the fence could be active.
So at night time, facility's locked, it can't act, the fence can't be active.
Yes,
So, okay, I was gonna say, this help all, if we need to turn it off and leave.
correct, yes. Okay. The difference is public is not a customer of the facility, public is anyone who's walking.
Yeah, I can understand a gate, you know, the next thing that someone's touching this thing and doesn't know anything about it versus someone that's having a trained that does have access to it. Hey, this is on the premises, so, okay, we got to understand. That's it.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Commissioner Qualls and Commissioner Watson?
So Dave, will we have that clear definition of, customer access versus general public access in the amendment? So that years from now, there's not confusion with what's considered public access and client access or customer access?
Yes, ma'am, we'd be happy to add some language in there. If you do decide to vote to approve it, your motion can include us clarifying that. It's actually administrative, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Watson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wilson, I just want to make sure, there's this section 9.3.2, this is allow electrified fences through a conditional use permit. That would be for any request for an electrified fence, correct?
No, sir. So other than the farm use, so farm use and those sorts of things are exempt as they currently are. But any type of electrical fence for security purposes.
For security
In
purposes.
the districts listed, yes, there would be a conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Commissioner Dingler?
Mr. West, when you spoke out behind me, with the facility that this is currently installed on, so does that mean where the board's action is tonight, if it does get approved, they come back to the conditional use process? So is that where we're at on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from Mr. Wilson? Someone no public comment? Anyone from the public wish to come forward? You're welcome to do so.
Thank you. My name is Michael Pate. I'm with Amarok. We actually build, install, maintain, and monitor these devices. And we were instrumental in helping the folks in here kind of draft the bill that we have out here right now, part of the amendment. A couple of things. I just want to give you a little primer on how it works. just in case you don't know. We basically work with a 12-volt battery, so that's what powers the entire system. We keep that battery charged with a couple of solar panels, so we're never connected to the mains at all. So if the power goes down, we're up and running and we're protecting that piece of property. We actually operate under a couple of standards. We operate under the International Electrotechnical Commission Standard 60335-2-76. Don't ask me to quote anything out of that. It's fairly complicated, but it basically tells you the voltage, the amperage, all the formulas you have to use in order to test these particular devices. And we actually have them tested by a nationally recognized testing laboratory and labeled so that they're safe and effective and won't hurt anybody. Now, you will feel a shock if you come up with one of these things. If you've ever been up to a horse fence or an agricultural fence, there's no perimeter fence. Rarely is there a signage up there. People go up to those things and hit them all the time. And if you have, you won't do it again, or you try not to. You see these things out in hinterlands. And that's one of the reasons I was a little concerned about the CEP. You've got agricultural use allowed here with no protections at all, no permits required at all. And you have a set of safety standards that we basically have in the amendment right now, and then you're asking everyone to go through, which is CUP, which is rather laborious and expensive. Mostly it's time consuming. So that's the reason I had some objections to CUP. You're out there with an agricultural fence, anyone can hit it, any child, any old man, any old woman, I'm an old man, anyone can walk by and hit it. So that's one of the reasons I had the objections with CUP. We have signage on all these. We basically have a sign about the size of a piece of notebook paper, 11 by 8 or so. It's yellow, black lettering, required by the standard. It basically has the international symbol for shock. Please don't touch this. The voltage, 7,000 to 9,000 volts. It's in English and Spanish. I actually have 36 languages I actually print on these signs throughout America. We've got about 330 or 340 installed just in the Charlotte area. That's how many we have there, and probably about 1,000 in the state of North Carolina. Basically, we're looking at a storage facility here. Thank you for mentioning the customers being in there. Basically, what we look at as a public access is when someone has a retail operation. Think of a retail operation as a United Rentals, Sunbelt Rentals, anybody, an equipment rental company where people come in and out, actually go into the store, ask about those particular devices they're trying to rent. That's kind of like a retail operation that we actually shut it off in the day and let it run at night. This is a little more unusual. My last couple of storage facilities I actually had a key code where I pulled up and key coded 24/7, 365 and could go in and out of the facility. So almost all the operation happens right in the front in the retail store, but everything in the back where we are is not. So that's kind of how that works on that. That kind of covers all of it. We have also developed new standards that were just American standards that were just published this year in January. It's an ANSI standard, same number, 60335-2. So those are kind of the only things I had to mention to it. If you have any questions at all about the operation and how it works, I'm glad to answer it. Thanks for this.
Commissioners, any comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak to this matter? You're welcome to do so at this time. Anyone else from the public? Hearing none, the chair will close the public hearing. And the chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Dingler's made a motion to approve the text amendment. Mr. Houston seconded the motion. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and the chair will entertain a statement of reasonableness and compliance and support of the approved text amendment. Mr. Dingler?
Text was approved in reasonable approach, so text amendment will provide security for option for business and safety and desire for actors in areas where electrical fence may be used. Commissioner
Dingler's presented a statement of reasonableness and compliance. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Houston, discussion on the statement. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Statement passes as well. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Don't go yet. We have one more. Agenda item 6E is just a regular agenda item, and it's a request for utility services from Prestige Development. The property is located at 2221 Charlotte Highway. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. This is a utility extension request you saw last month and had tabled it until this month. This request is for 2221 Charlotte Highway. The applicant is working through the TRC for plans, or has worked through the TRC for a concept plan for residential development of 35 single-family homes. This property, we are calling Phase 2 Sequoia Forest. Phase 1 Sequoia Forest is immediately to the south. It has 37 single-family homes that have been previously approved. For the different departmental reviews for this utility extension request, no department had any issues with being able to provide utility service to this property. In the planning office, we look at our tiered growth map, which does designate this property as Tier 1, which is the most likely to immediately develop in the near future. And our future land use map does designate the property as an employment center. You can see on the screen here, the map on the left shows the two parcels. The green is Tier 1. This tanner green color is Tier 3. The blue are existing water lines running up Charlotte Highway. The map on the right, you can see, is our future land use map and one Mooresville plan. Does designate this property as an employment center, so it does anticipate primary jobs being created on this property. You can see the orange is neighborhood residential to the south, west, and to the east. So in addition to this application, all applicants looking to do a utility extension request outside of town limits also submit a voluntary annexation application, which has been submitted for this property and will come before you later this year. Originally, the rezoning request by the applicant for conditional zoning for this property for the development itself was anticipated for this meeting, but the applicant pulled it from planning board agenda, so they will be coming next month to planning board for that project. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Comments or questions for Mr. Wilson? Hearing none, will the applicant, Prestige Development, please come forward? Commissioners, if you don't have any questions, the applicant's not here, and Mr. Wilson is right here before us. Do you have any other comments or questions? The chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Wilson?
Just first to say to Danny, thank you for allowing us to continue this and we get a little bit more questions answered, as I think we will have a lot of those questions answered when this plan comes to us in October, I guess, that from the planning board. So, obviously, the ask tonight is for utilities, and I'll make a motion to approve the utility request.
Commissioner Qualls has made a motion to approve the utility request. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Whittington. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. It's time to call on Ms. Pratt, and this is in regards to the award contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This evening, we are requesting the Utilities Department that you consider awarding a contract to Brushy Mountain Builders in an amount not to exceed $687,500 for the north side pump station improvements and subsequent budget amendments to cover the cost of those improvements. This work consists of installation of an automatic bar screen. This is a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've had because we had constructed actual structure outside of the pump station to house the bar screen. And as you can see on the map, the north side pump station is located kind of in the southeastern quadrant of NC 150 and NC 801 in the backside of the Crosby Woods subdivision. And I'll just point out the pump station has been there much longer than the subdivision. That pump station was built, I believe, in the sixties. And with that, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions from Ms. Krause? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Weston, can you read that motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we approve awarding a construction contract to Brushy Mountain Builders Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $687,500 for the North Side Pump Station Improvements Project and subsequent budget amendments.
Commissioner Weston's made a motion to award contract. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Houston. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. This time, the chair will recognize Mr. Randy, our town manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll be brief tonight. Just want to run through some things that are going on in the various departments. Quick update. You'll notice our two zip codes were now over 1,000 COVID cases. The area above us towards Statesville's running a little higher than that at 1,100, and then we've got 555 in the northern part of the county. A few departmental highlights. Human Resources and Risk Management is doing biometric screenings right now. We have canceled our health and wellness fair due to COVID. Diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We have Kaleidoscope on board. They've met with staff and will be working soon in departments. Fire and rescue is undergoing annual hydrant testing, so if you see any flows going out there, you'll understand why. We've had 524 calls for service. I want to point out the Battalion Chief Barrier and TI's Jeff Martin supported the emergency communications training, the RNC. And I think you might have seen a picture of that. Did a great job for us there. Police Department got year 2 of grant funding for a traffic enforcement unit. We're very pleased with that assistance with funding. And during August, we had 1 full-time officer, 4 police trainees, and 1 full-time telecommunicator that were hired. And I think we've got a second telecommunicator that's been hired as well after this report. There were 75 incidents of domestic violence. That is up. That's to be expected with what we're dealing with COVID and folks at home. That's a 12% increase over 2020 and a 19% increase over 2019. Public library, nearly 3,000 Tribune newspapers. We've got those dating from 1904 to 1966 have actually been uploaded so that folks can receive those online. We hosted a traveling exhibit of posters celebrating the 19th Amendment that we had our resolution on earlier. And on September 17th, Teen Services is hosting a virtual conversation with a Iredell Court, or County Board of Elections representative looking at first-time voters. And on the 22nd of September, we'll join 60 other libraries from across the state to host a voter registration celebration. Community development, safe routes to schools, and the bike trailer has been outfitted with bicycles for children to use during safety clinics. Staff's working with NCDOT to resolve a sidewalk gap of 850 linear feet for the Williamson Road project, widening project. And Krista Jordan started today as the new planner one. She came to us from Greenville, South Carolina. She was landscape architect there. She's got experience in brownfields and a number of other things that we're looking forward to take advantage of her skill set. Parks and Rec outfitted a trailer with fitness equipment for outdoor fitness programs in the park. That's a COVID-related adaptation, obviously. We've had great golf revenue, continues to be high. It's been over 200,000 this past month. And the farmer's market is closed for the season. We ended up having 13 vendors there, an average of about 250 in attendance each week. And also the golf club won the Normie Award for the best of the lake for the third consecutive year, which is saying a lot because we've got a lot of nice courses around the lake. TI, the Exit 31 camera was installed, and I should say cameras, multiple cameras, and those are recording now. The governance committee has held its first meeting, and we had 447 help desk tickets in the last 30 days. We've had an incredible amount of help desk tickets. That too is to be expected with all the remote use that we've experienced. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Heaton. Comments or questions from commissioners? Hearing none, commissioners, is there any new business you'd like to discuss this evening? Hearing none, then we'll go on into closed session under consult attorney under GS 143-18083, the economic development under GS 143-18084, and C personnel under GS 143-18086. The chair will entertain a motion to go into closed session. Mr. Dingman made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And now we'll close session. Chair will call the meeting back to order, recognize Commissioner Whittington.
I would like to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing condemnation of the property owned by Robert S. Evanston Jr. Family Limited Partnership, or LLLP, containing 2.85 acres more or less.
Thank you, Commissioner Whittington, for making that motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dingler. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Dingler's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any adjourned.